Hello, friends, and welcome to the Creative Insider Podcast number 52. In this episode, I had the pleasure and the honor to talk with Indian architect and designer Amey Kandalgaonkar. Amey has a professional experience across India, China, and Canada, where he is actually currently based. And he's the person behind the famous Instagram account and architectural blog, Amazing Architect. His work has been published on media such as Design Boom, Arc Daily, The Zine, and it was actually reshared from the official Instagram page of Instagram. And so far, he has reached the astonishing number of over 100K followers. So he has an amazing online presence and social media presence, and it was really interesting to discover the person behind that account. So I hope you're gonna enjoy this conversation and you're gonna be inspired to start your own blog and your own online presence with your own interests and your own design ideas. But before we start, I can tell you that I want to remind you and thank you, first of all, for the amazing support you've showing to the show by increasing always the number of downloads and the number of listens, which is a very nice reward and means that the work we're doing is appreciated. And I want to remind you that the very best thing that you can do to support a podcast for free is just subscribe whenever you're listening and share with your friends, with your family, with other people that could enjoy our work. You could, of course, also follow us on our social media channels, which are at TCI Podcast and The Creative Insider on LinkedIn. You can visit thecreativeinsider.com where you can subscribe for our newsletter. Every month we send one short newsletter with the best of what you can learn from the podcast we have recorded during that month. And if you really, really want to help us and you have, of course, the possibility, you can support us with small economic contributions and tips because, of course, producing this podcast costs us most of everything time. Has costed us a lot of money to put together all the gear that we use to record a podcast, and we're aware that we need to improve all the quality of the production. So whatever you can, the basic, it's $5, but if you have less, you can support us with less, and it's everything is appreciated. But I said, we really much appreciate the free support you can have by just resharing our work. So thank you very much. And as I said, share with friends, follow us on social media, and build up your online presence as Amey did to discover what benefits can create for you. Now, enjoy the conversation with Amey Kandalgaonkar.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Amey. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Thank you for setting up the podcast outside of the regular scheduled hours because of our time difference.
No problem at all. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you for participating. I got to know about you from Oliver Thomas. He was on the podcast number 30, and he's a computational design expert at the Bjork Ingels Group in New York. And recently he released this. I think he on the side he has his own sort of project, which is Pixels Architecture, and he did a project about prefabricated living units, and he published some very nice images, and they were around the web, around Instagram, and ask him how did you do these images, and then he told me you were the man behind those really good images and really descriptive, and I love them. So it's really nice to have you on the podcast so you can tell me more about your work.
Right.
Um,
Thanks again.
so you can introduce yourself a little bit, what you do, what is your background?
Hi. My name is Amey Kandalgaonkar, and I'm originally from India, born and brought up in Mumbai. I studied my architecture over there at Sajaji College of Architecture, and since then I have lived in three other countries: China, UK, and now Canada. And yeah, I studied my master's degree in architectural design in UK at UCL. And yeah, I've lived and worked in these many different countries. And on the side I do my Instagram design blog. And yeah, I just do it for as a fun. And I don't know where it is going, but I hope something interesting comes out of it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna become something interesting because I've checked also your Instagram blog, as you said, which is on Instagram at amazing, which is written with a Y, like your Amey, like your name, underscore architect, and it's the images are so dope. I'm gonna put a link, of course, in the episode description so that the people can just check it out themselves. And you have the astonishing number of 102,000 followers. So I'm wondering, did you build this along how many years did you build this audience, and did it came all organically, or you also use some, I don't know, Facebook ads and things like that?
So I have been doing this for 2.5 years now. Started in September 2018, and I have been doing it completely organically, for the reason that because if you start using ads, I think then it becomes very hard to go back to organic growth. So I didn't want to depend on the ads. So my focus has always been just keeping it organic. Uh, Initially, it was just about having fun. I never was taking it seriously. But then I found out that once you get some publications, that automatically enables the growth of your platform. So since like in last couple of years, there have been many major publications that has basically helped me reach this 100,000 milestone. Most important was about 4 months ago, Instagram's main page featured my work, which basically brought in 30,000 followers in a span of 2 days. So yeah, I think these help a lot better than advertising.
Yeah, and I'm asking you this not because, I mean, nowadays, a lot of people think that having these social media platforms and these followers, it's something very hollow. But I think in your case and in case of creative people, building a platform, building media that delivers good content, in a sense, also, inspiring or educational, and giving you this platform to have your own voice, it's really important, because this might have some business leads too. I don't know, is that happened so far, that through your Instagram platform you have been contacted by people to co-work or cooperate on some projects?
Well, yeah, this is a big question, and it has a very big answer, many answers rather. So yeah, the first thing that you mentioned, that many people think that this is a very hollow thing to do, right? Just building your online presence, or creating this glossy facade on Instagram. And I agree with it. I myself find it quite hollow sometimes, but it's a bit of a gray area for me, that I'm moving between these two positions, that sometimes I don't see the point in what I'm doing myself, but sometimes I also feel that, hey, this is the best tool we have right now to as a young architect, to put myself out there, because architecture is a very hard field to succeed in. And if you don't have a good backing, there is a very small possibility of succeeding. So these Instagram or any social media platforms, they enable you to be, even as a single one person team, you can still achieve something credible there. uh, I mean, in my definition, it's credible. I don't know what other people think, but that allows me to succeed somewhere, at least without having built any work. uh the other, sorry, I forgot what was the other
If
point there.
that has brought you some business leads, in a sense that
Yes. mm, uh well, short answer is no. The long answer is a lot of people do approach for projects, but i have to be I have to be honest with myself that I'm just putting renders out there. I'm not really putting any real work out there, so I'm not even expecting that some real work will come out of it. What has, like, the way this has helped me is building a lot of relationships with a lot of other creative people internationally, and I find that also very valuable. It has also opened up employment opportunities for me.
well,
So
that's indirect, sort of a money proposal. Like even, um, for example, if you, I think that through your social media presence, also if some smaller office that is trying to get more visibility hires you and tells you like we would like you to work for us and share your projects on your platform to to give our idea or design idea visibility, maybe that's also your added value in your CV for sure.
yeah, it does. Although I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that, because I think there'll be just I don't know, mixed messages on my platform. I want to just keep my work separate from my professional work, or the place where I work. But yeah, like, I think if you look back like 40-50 years ago, the young architects, the best tools they had was publishing their work through journals, design journals. And I think Instagram or these social media platforms are providing this to everyone today, not only selected individuals. So there are pros and cons, but I think overall I would like to see the positive side of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's amazing because also I started this podcast to to do exactly this, to create my own media that it's not the mainstream maybe media, or not it's not a big magazine, it's not a big TV, but it creates a content that me personally think is going to be useful for a lot of people who are listening, because it gives you a real overview about the life of an architect, and it gives you sort of a behind the scene of this shiny content that we always see, like videos, images, to understand. Because I mean, also as a professional, I work in the field of architecture and design also, and when you see the websites of every firm, of every company, and you see all the publications, they look all very shiny. But when you don't know behind the scenes the work that it's behind them, it's that once you know it, look the end results look different to you, and maybe you're more aware of that. And I think it's good to have the opportunity nowadays to build your own presence and your own media and tell different stories, instead of having it everything at one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the brightest example that everybody knows, a couple of examples. One in the podcast field is the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, he started 10 years ago from nothing, just probably hanging out with his friends, telling jokes. And today, it's the biggest podcast in the world. 10 years ago, nobody saw how would he make money out of it. But then, recently he's made $100 million deal. So that's, I think, what future is in general, that we don't know where it is leading. You just keep working hard towards it. In the creative field, the recent example is the Beeple, he sold his collection of his 5,000 images as NFTs.
Yeah.
Even for 13 years he's been creating one image every day, and it is hard to see the reason behind it. Like, why would somebody just do that for 13 years without taking a break? But now suddenly everybody sees the meaning behind it. So yeah, I think, yeah, these are two bright examples.
Yeah, I think work pays always back, and I always like this saying that my grandma told me. It's you have to work for your luck. Like if you work, at some point you create your own luck. Because as you said, if you publish an image every day for 13 years, you don't know, but when somebody comes and starts this whole NTF thing and you sell it for 65 millions or something, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the third, I think it's the third most expensive artwork ever sold.
Yes.
After, I don't know which one were the first two, but yeah.
I think third most living artist, like most valuable living artist, something like that. Probably, yeah, Picasso's, or they would sell a lot more, maybe. But it's interesting, right? I mean, until a few months ago, nobody had heard of him, and suddenly, everybody is talking about him, and now NFT is such a big phenomena.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nobody from the mainstream, probably, like people outside of the industry, haven't heard about him, and now he was on the most and every news website I've been during the time he sold, the week he sold
Yeah.
the artwork, he was somewhere there. But let's start from the beginning, because we covered a little bit the beginning of this of your account. I was just interested because I was also very flattered when, Oliver connected us and you accepted. I really was just fascinated about the images you did and the work you did together with him. But I want to start from beginning to understand your background. Was there a moment in your life when you were young, or a kid, or someone from your family, what made you want to be an architect? What was the moment or the thing that made you want to be an architect?
I think it was around the age 15 that I decided to be an architect. And the factors that influenced was that, again, I'm telling you a thinking process of a 15-year-old, so it's going to sound a little bit lame, but I was good at art, and also I was good at maths and science, and I thought architecture would be a perfect blend of two. And because I wanted to be an artist first, but my dad was a little bit like, hey, that's going to bring a lot of instability for you, so maybe you should choose a better profession. So I thought, hey, maybe being an architect, I would be able to, be in touch with both sides. And that's why I got into architecture. But of course, it turned out quite different than what I was expecting. But yeah, that's how it is.
But you say you were into art, so you were into drawing, or what you were doing as a 15-year-old?
So actually, from the age of 8, I started learning how to draw and paint. So for 8 years almost, I had a proper training in learning how to draw and paint. So every Sunday, my dad would take me to a drawing class. We would travel across the city to the other end. I would spend a couple of hours over there, and we did this without a break for 8 years, every Sunday. So I was quite good at drawing and painting by age of 15, 16. I had won a lot of competitions, and I thought, hey, this is what I will do further. But then I thought, around that time, I was also good at maths and sciences. So I thought, it makes a perfect logical sense to bring this together.
And but did you started these classes about art on your own will, or your family?
No, my dad.
Oh.
It was my dad's initiative, and I'm hugely, or I just should not say just my dad, both of my parents, and I'm greatly thankful to them.
And how was the process to get into your or university, into your bachelor degree studies? You studied the bachelor in India, right?
Yes, in Mumbai, Sir JJ College of Architecture. It happens to be the oldest architectural and art institution in Asia, about established about 150 years ago. Uh, yeah, so once you finish your high school studies, you give an entrance exam, and you get into your architecture school, and then you have this 5 years of architecture degree, which I think is a standard around the world.
I'm curious because I studied at the biggest university in Europe, which is La Sapienza in Rome, and the
Okay.
biggest by number. And for example, I remember every year for the degree I got, there are 324 spots each year, and there are around 5,000 candidates. And
Wow.
as I know, India is also have a huge population. So I'm curious,
Yes.
are the numbers to like how did you need to compete in this exam against a lot of people, or it's not a clear number?
So I don't know the exact number against which I competed, but uh, like for example, the architecture school that I went to, it mostly attracted students from the local vicinity. I would say like the city or the state, not not many students nationally. Maybe I would say like 10% of students
Mm-hmm.
came from out of state. Uh, so yeah, I wouldn't say it was highly competitive. It was like moderately competitive because Mumbai back then already had like 15 architecture colleges. Today probably it has gone up to 30 maybe. But yeah, I think there were plenty seats for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there are, also in Rome, there are a couple universities, just depend which faculty you pick and which university. And is it like something that, I'm asking you because I'm not very aware of what is the situation in this realm in India. Is it the university somehow accessible to everyone, or are the fees fixed and your family needs to support you? You need to work to be able to afford it? Because for example in Europe, in most of the countries, there is some sort of a system that makes it free or less expensive for the lower lower society levels. And in the US, for example, it's extremely expensive. Everybody needs to pay the same and
Yeah.
usually end up having a loan. So I'm curious, what is the system in India?
So the school that I went to was a government school. So the education was actually very very cheap. I paid the fees of 200 euros a year, which is I think very low, and girls paid the fees of 100 euros a year because they wanted women participation in education. So I think yeah, it was accessible to everyone. I think everyone could afford that. The private schools would have maybe fees of maybe 500 euros or 500 to 1000, let's say, every year, which I think was still okay. I would say like from people from Mumbai, they could kind of afford that.
What is the
Uh,
average salary in Mumbai? Like around, of
so
course,
I
roughly.
would say back then, I'm talking about 2004, 2005. Back then, it was like 700-800 euros a month, but at a senior level.
Mm.
When I started my first job as an architect, I started earning 100 euros a month as an intern. So yeah.
There are some offices in Europe where you start maybe at zero also, so
Yeah.
it's not that bad. And when you access university, how was your university? How was the whole environment? What you were learning, the other students, the professors? Do you think you got a level of education that's, so to say, world class? How do you evaluate that experience now when you have some path behind you?
Yeah, well, to put it simply, it was very far from world class. Uh, I think the universe, like, or the school itself, did not have a lot of control on its own, like, education methods or the education syllabus. It was kind of this national syllabus that was created, or like a statewide syllabus that was created for these 50 schools or 100 schools. So everybody had to follow the same, and it was not very good, I would say. We were still learning things that were practiced 50 years ago, 30 years ago, and there was no discussion on, the latest ideas or the latest technology. There was an emphasis on design, which was a good part, but I felt overall the quality of education was not very good. Also, when I was studying there, I never had this feeling that I was part of something special. The environment, I would say, was kind of like not very inspiring. Like, as an architect, yeah. So I think that all of that changed when I went to study my masters, and I could see this stark contrast between two different ways of learning architecture.
But you said that there wasn't a lot, a lot discussion, and nobody was teaching technologies. You mean like software wise, like what are the softwares applied into architectural design, or what kind of technology you mean?
This is a more general statement. Software wise, I would say, actually, yeah, we were learning Revit, for example, back then in 2007, which was quite good. uh, you are free to use any software you would like, but, like, for example, university would not really provide good computers in the first place. So people did not have resources to use those softwares. You had to buy your own computer, which would not be very good. So you're not really able to push your designs. So that is about computers. But even on the, like, I think the library was very, very good. But when it comes to, let's say, even learning the history of architecture in school, we would learn up to modernism, up to 50s and 60s. After that, there was nothing. Like, we did not learn much about contemporary architecture, which is, I think, very, very important. So even like the building technologies that we would learn what they were doing 50 years ago, the concrete technologies or the steel technologies. But there was no talk of new materials that are being used today.
I understand. And you said while you were studying this at this faculty, you started to have the so to say your first working experience, right? So how did you transition? Did you just apply in the meanwhile already to some offices to start gathering some practice, or you graduated afterwards? How did you make the first step into going professional as a designer, so to say?
Yeah, while I was studying, I did do some small internships in an office, and that is also the office that I joined after I graduated. Uh, I think moving to a work life was quite a nice experience for me. I enjoyed it a lot more than student life because I felt that I had more control on my own life. I think, like, okay, you are earning your own money. You can set your own monthly budget, or set your own schedule. Once you finish work and come home, there is no studio work to do. The entire time is your own, and you're free to do what you want. So I think I enjoyed the professional life a lot better than the student life.
Oh, for me it was the same also, because Even if there were some long hours, I was paid for them. So that was way nicer, to work and get some money for the struggle. Yeah, that's totally for me the game changer between the student and professional life.
I think also the work life was a lot more competitive, I felt, because now suddenly you are in this environment where the designs that you create, there is a possibility that they will really get built. I think that was quite exciting. And so I didn't hold myself back at all. I just completely threw myself in the field, worked hard to create good designs. Unfortunately, none of them got built, but even until today, none of my designs are built. But I guess that's how it goes in architecture.
Well, if people go and see the kind of images and designs you make, they're pretty crazy, pretty organic shapes, or very dramatic shapes, so to say. At which point of was it back in the days already that you started being interested in this kind of design form and design result, or did this language came to you later?
Uh, Actually, I would say I prefer not to have a fixed design language. I like to explore different languages. I think when it comes to this, I take inspiration from the work of Herzog and de Meuron. They have this unique approach to every project, which is specific to that particular place and time and context. It's not the same idea that they are trying to force on every project. So I like that way of thinking, and I also try to explore different ideas, different ways of designing, different looks, different forms, every time when I'm sitting down to work.
But there, yeah, I can see that. But did you start because to create this organic shapes or particular geometrical shapes, because some of them are pretty geometrical but still have some sort of algorithm, did you start already back in the days when you were still in India, your first, so to say, first arms in the design world, to explore how to work with these tools? Or did this really, how long is your experience with this kind of design, or since when you try to achieve this kind of results, so to say?
I think the result that you see is attributed a lot to the softwares I use than I would say my way of working. Because I think as a designer, okay, this is a little bit hard to explain. Let me try my best. I think the way I started doing this was my focus was to just learn the software. There was no like conscious effort towards design. It was more conscious towards learning the tool. Because once you learn the tool, then you start exploring the possibilities of what you can do with that tool. So when I started using this software about 3 years ago, Cinema 4D, it was a vast software. There was a lot of possibilities of what you can do. You can do a lot of parametric work. You could do a lot of geometric shapes or organic shapes. So every few months, I would bounce between these different approaches of designing or creating a model, and I would just explore the possibilities within that method.
So
And that's how
all of your work is done in Cinema 4D.
Or what you see on Instagram, yes. It's I would say relatively new software in the field of architecture. I mean, it's a very old software, close to 30 years old, but I came across it through the work of Beeple, about 5 years ago, and I really liked the quality of images that he was producing, and I thought, hey, I could see some architectural possibilities with what he was doing. I mean, he's an artist, okay, but I thought I think this needs to also happen in a field of architecture. So
Yeah, I think it's amazing what kind of impact he had through his everydays, because we on the podcast was also Revilo. Revilo, it's another 3D artist who was he didn't say how old is he, but I assume he's young than what you expect from his work. And he saw people and emailed people, and people answered to him and told him like the only way to get better is do an image every day. And by the time we did the interview with him, he was at 900 every day. So he's doing this for 2-3 years, and he now looks so much like, even if he probably doesn't try to, but he looks, his images and his work look so much alike, like people. And in your work also look very, very, the images are, I like, they're very dramatic, but still they have this clean sense of design, not over saturated or not over, it's a very interesting style that you have developed. Not, I don't know if it's even, you can say a style, because every image is different, but the narrative, so to say.
yeah, when I started, I tried to keep things simple. I took a lot of shortcuts because we are working full time in your 9 to 5 job, and you come home and then you want to do this for another 2-3 hours. Firstly, it's difficult to find the energy to do that every day. And once you have that, you want to minimize the number of decisions you want to make in design process. You want to make posts as frequently as possible. So what I did was, I decided, okay, I'm just going to work with concrete, because that automatically narrows down a lot. So I realized, hey, you create any form, you apply concrete, and it looks good. so yeah, I did take that shortcut, I would say. And again, this is digital work. I don't have to worry about concrete's environmental impact here. So
but I have a question, because you said you started using first Cinema 4D 3 years ago, and to learn the tool. So for me, like learning a new software or learning something new, it feels like a little bit like a rocket launch, like the first meters, the first boost is the hardest one until you get it up. And then slowly gets, you don't need that much power to keep going.
Yes.
So what was since the moment you saw, I guess you saw Beeple, you got to know somehow about Beeple, and you started learning. And so I've tried to use that software back in the days. And of course, how long did you need to get how many hours or how many days before you get from the moment that you're really a noob in the software until you can just quickly make an image? Or I don't know how long now it takes you to pull out some of those projects that you do.
So I like to think that I'm very good at picking up 3D softwares. So, and plus, a Cinema 4D is a relatively easy software to learn. It has a very easy learning curve. I would say in a month you will be quite good in Cinema 4D. But here it's not only Cinema 4D. I'm using a lot of things. So I'm also using the plugin called Octane Render, which does the rendering job. Plus, I'm using a lot of materials from different sources. So then, like, there is another plugin for you creating trees. There is a plugin for creating plants. So you have to learn all of this. And then also when you bring materials in, like, you have to make sure they are working well. And it does take some time to get used to get a hang of it. But I think I would say safely a month was what I really needed to at least achieve the basic quality.
And from there on you build up. But what was your background before? I mean, every architect that starts to learn a new software knows at least one other software before that. So what was did you have some background in other softwares before you started cinema?
Yeah, like in university, I was not using any 3 softwares at all. After I graduated, in my first job, I learned SketchUp, which I used like extensively for 2 years, and I got really good at it. Then towards like just before going to my master's studies in UK, I started using Rhino, and then before I started using Cinema 4D 3 years ago, I was using Rhino for 7 years. So yeah, I was good at Rhino also. I use it even now today at work. So Rhino is something, that I've always used, but I feel there are a lot of limitations to it when it comes to visualization aspect. You can't really create good images right inside Rhino. You have to take your model either to 3D Max, maybe render it there with V-Ray and then Photoshop it. That has been, the traditional approach. But with Cinema 4D, I felt like this became a one-stop shop. I could do everything right inside, zero Photoshop, and I had a lot more control on all the aspects, right from the design to finishing.
But if you were about to do plans of those projects, then it will be not very good. Maybe you should need to go the other way around, go from Cinema to Rhino, and then from there create some 2D sections, so to say, and then...
Yes. Cinema 4D is very much like Maya or 3D Max. There is a zero drafting tools inside. So that is where Rhino really trumps.
Yes. But to go back a little bit to your path, at what point you decided you want to leave India, and what made you leave India?
So I left India in 2010, and it was first about just going to UK and study my masters, which I did for a year, and I think that had a very profound experience, like profound impact on my thinking as a creative individual. Like the teaching methods that they use I felt like were quite interesting, because you go there, like it was my first time outside of India. I had no experience of no international experience, and throughout my course, the whole time I was working by myself. You're just one person. There is only one lecture every week. Rather studio, 2 hours of studio. You meet your tutor, he gives comments on your work, and the rest of the week you're working by yourself. So it was actually very, very difficult to adapt to. First 6 months I spent unlearning what I had learned before, and then in last 6 months I tried to catch up as much as possible to others. So it was one of the hardest thing I did until that point, and I think it was hugely beneficial to my journey afterwards. I would say, like, what I'm doing today on my Instagram, it kind of that education in UCL was kind of the starting point to my journey here.
And was it hard to get to to UK from India? Did you need to do a lot of paperwork for getting a visa and things like that?
It was not very, very difficult. So I think firstly, you just prepare your portfolio and submit an application to the university. So the course that I was applying to was a master's in architectural design, and like they gave me they offered me the position there, and then you just apply for your visa and you go there. Simple. Well, it wasn't that hard.
Okay. And once you have, so you said, I've heard that already on another podcast because I had I had other guests from India that studied in England, and they said that there was a little bit of a shocking experience, because the methods are completely different. For instance, that was the guy's called Vamsi. He has a learning platform online. I don't know, maybe
Yes.
you might be aware of Futurely. That's he's a co-founder of that
Yes.
platform, and he was on the podcast, and he said that also he went for an exchange year in the UK. It was, I don't know if it was Manchester or Newcastle or maybe something else, but yeah. And for you was also a different experience, but did you feel you learn more because you were pushing it yourself, or just because the method of learning were different and then you learn these different things?
Both things. I think firstly, you come all the way over there, you spend a lot of money, so there is a lot of pressure, not to fail. And yes, different ways of learning, because in UCL they were really focusing on the design on the fundamental level, more like a universal level, where after you graduate, you could work in any industry and still be able to work, still be able to be a good designer. It was not just architectural design, it was about identifying problems and solving them, be it any industry. So like my thesis project, for example, was about designing architecture for some endangered animal species in UK. And when I first started approaching it, I just could not get the hang of the idea that why would you design something for the animals, as a serious architecture project. But over the time, I like once I started identifying the problems, and as I started to come up with solutions to those problems, and architectural solutions rather, I started to get the point behind this exercise, that it was about learning universal design and not just architectural design. So yeah, I think that really opened up my thinking to a lot of possibilities in architecture.
I understand. And once you have finished that, did you need to go back, or did you try to stay there or stay there for work?
Oh yeah, so I graduated in 2011, which was at a peak of a recession in UK. There were not many jobs. I did manage to find a position at RMJM. It is a Scottish firm. So I worked there about 6 months in their London office, but they didn't have a lot of work. So at the end of 6 months, I returned back to India, and I worked there for a couple of years before moving to Shanghai, to UK. To China.
What kind of? But when you came back, did you start working at the office you were working before leaving, or?
Yes. I joined the same office. I worked there for a couple of years. Yeah.
And how did the possibility for Shanghai came?
Oh yeah. So that was completely by accident, and I was not planning at all. So I met my wife online, or through WhatsApp, and she was based in Shanghai. So I made a decision of going there because I was not very happy with my journey in India, and I thought, maybe Shanghai would be something new and different. And my wife really, sold me really well. Sold the idea of Shanghai very well. So I didn't hesitate. I moved there. It was a hard transition, but yeah, I think quite fun, and I enjoyed every bit of it.
But have you met her before moving to Shanghai, like in real life, or you needed to completely move to Shanghai and there you met her live?
No, actually, we went to same school, so we know each other
Okay.
for a long time. So yeah, it was just we started talking again after about 10 years, after the gap of 10 years. She's an engineer, but yeah, like she told me some cool things about Shanghai, and so I was like, hey, whatever, I'm just gonna jump into it and figure it out later.
And was it then hard to take a visa for China, or no, not at all? Because also I know
Oh
that
yeah.
currently the political relationship between China and India are not so nice, I guess.
Uh, well, even now there are a lot of Indians there working, but back in 2014, I mean the relations were a bit better, definitely. But the trick was that your work visa is attached to your employer or to your job. So until you don't have a job, you don't have a visa. So I've initially went there on a student on a tourist visa, staying there with my fiance over there, and looking for the job at the same time. And I was lucky, in a month I did find a job, and then I was able to get a proper work visa and continue my journey.
What was it? Was the big office that you worked there, or local
No,
one?
it was actually a Spanish office, and a small, I would say, like 15 to 20 people.
Oh, and what kind of, did you already have been working on? What kind of project did you work on? Have you been already more specialized into this, so to say, imagery language, or you were doing every possible aspect of architecture?
So that office was quite interesting. It was called the name of the office was RTA office, a real time architecture. It was headed by architect Santiago Paramon, and they did a lot of cool designs. Uh, and I think I really enjoyed working there because, again, like, it was quite an intense environment. We were doing good designs, but at the same time working long hours, trying to figuring out the designs, make them buildable. It was a short time, about just a year, but that is the first time I really got an idea of how an international design office works, and I think that was quite helpful.
So there you were, people from everywhere around the world. And what is the social status as an architect in China, as an Indian architect in China? Because I know, for example, I have had many former colleagues here in Germany that have been working in China in that period of time too. Also, because of the recession, and during the recession, I guess China was the place where to go, because there was booming the building industry and the architecture industry. And they have told me that they were earning way more there as Germans in a German company because of the whole thing that you live abroad. But as someone that you were hired there, where your paycheck way better than India, and was it good on a worldwide level? How do you feel about that?
Yes, it was definitely better than India. And yeah, like, I guess once you go there, you're in an international office, everybody's equal. So if you compare inside the company, yes, I was, in terms of pay, I was treated equally. But it was a design office, and we spent a lot of time in design exploration. We were tackling difficult designs, so overall pay scale was low, for everyone in the office, compared to, let's say, other bigger offices. Also, the company was quite unstable. The clients were not paying on time, so that created a lot of problems for us. But overall, I met a lot of good people. I met a lot of good friends, and I enjoyed that experience thoroughly.
As someone that has been, I was just thinking about it. I've moved a lot myself internationally, although across Europe, and you have been moving a lot around the world, because you've been basically for a longer time in England, in the UK, in India, in China. Now you're in Canada. While moving, do you have personally and some, so to say, cultural shock that have you needed to adapt in the beginning to the local culture that didn't belong to you before going there?
Uh, In UK, yes, because I was going to the West for the first time. It was just like mind-boggling sometimes, like the way things are done, and this the scale of things. Moving to China, I think again I was impressed by what they had achieved over there. When you go to Shanghai first and you just see the amount of buildings they've built, or the infrastructure that they've built is just amazingly impressive. But being another Asian nation, it shares a lot of values with India. It's just, I think, probably comes with being uh, a patriarchal society, which is like with thousands of years of history. I think there are a lot of things that we do very similarly in India and China. So I think apart from the language barrier, I think for me the adjusting was quite easy. And also I was working in these international offices, so I was kind of shielded from like I didn't have to speak Chinese at work, for example. So I never even tried learning. We were just talking English all the time. So I think the transition was quite easy.
But in the daily life too, also, or most of your daily life was office.
Yeah, initially yes, most of my daily life was office, and my wife could speak Chinese. So if I really needed help, I would just ask her. So yeah, it was okay. I think the hardest part was in the second year uh, of my time in China, when there was a small recession over there. So that time I started to explore prospects as a architectural photographer. I just left my job, and I started exploring this photography full time. That was a very hard part over there to sustain myself.
So you went basically as a freelancer architectural photographer.
Yes. So because again, thanks to my wife, I was married to her. I could go on a dependent visa, and I could explore these options of doing photography. I spent a year building my photography business over there, build the website, starting building contacts. Because what happened through my first year of work over there, a lot of people around me, they told me, hey, you have a good photography, why don't you explore architectural photography? And I thought, okay, maybe it will be more stable than architecture itself, which I was wrong about. But anyway, I just thought, let's explore this, and I went into it full heartedly. But within a year I was back into architecture.
And I'm curious, how did you start this whole thing with photography? Have you done photography all before alongside your profession? And also, what kind of camera did you use? And how did you learn to do specifically architecture photography?
I learned photography from my father. He was also like exploring photography as a hobby. So he taught photography. He taught me photography in early 2000s, and I bought my first digital camera in 2004. It was also my first year of architecture. So I think as I was learning architecture, I think I was also learning photography. So for me, architecture and photography always went together. So I think in my head, there is no difference between a designing or photography. I think these two roles in my mind are quite interchangeable. So I didn't really have to learn architectural photography strictly. I think it just came to me naturally. Because at the end of the day, photography is a way of presenting your design. You know, it's just that architects themselves don't do it. They hire somebody else to do it. But when you are a student, you are, let's say you're building a physical model and taking photos out of it, or even if you're building a digital model and you're making images out of it, what you're basically doing is photographing that model. So for me, architectural photography was kind of, like just second nature, to architecture.
And so this skill, it's definitely have helped you a lot in what you're doing today.
Yes. Actually, if you look at my Instagram work, it is actually like that. I'm just taking photographs of these models. And, these are interchangeable roles.
But do you have also an extra page where you post this other kind of real photography, or it's not a thing that you're doing anymore at all, or that you haven't developed, so to say?
I do have. It's called Amey.Kandal. Amey.Kandal. I'm not very active on that page, but actually it's quite an old page, about 5 years old. And yeah,
we're gonna be sharing all this content because I'm really fascinated by your, so to say, passion and interdisciplinary, because you've mentioned you work full time as an architectural designer. You're doing the Instagram blog with your own projects. You've done photography, so you can really see that you are really, this is not only your job, but it's also your passion, your hobby, yourself, your character, so to say. This is what I feel from the way from the things you do and from how you talk about it.
well, actually, yeah, I would like to talk about it more. About 3 years ago, there came a point for me when, I was turning 30, and you really start asking yourself, okay, where is my life really headed? Am I just going to be an employee for somebody, or am I going to start something on my own? That is when I started doing my design Instagram, because photography for me was not, I would say, creatively satisfying enough. That, okay, you are shooting somebody else's work, but you are not really creating it. And for me, designer in me was not very happy. So that's why I started my Instagram account of, Amazing Architect, where I'm posting my designs. And until that point also, my architectural journey was also not very satisfying. I was a bit disappointed because none of my designs were getting built. I don't think they were very crazy necessarily, but it's just that the clients had a lot more say in things, and they probably just didn't value architects in general. So this was my experience in India and China. So I thought, oh, hey, look, at least I should be able to put my ideas out there in another way, or through another platform. In real life, okay, my designs are not getting built, but I should be able to balance it, with my design blog. And that's why this design blog started.
What I'm curious now that you're talking about this, because this aspect, it's very nice, because I think that unless you're not a person that just have studied to arrive to a point where they work this architectural job, let's say 9 to 5, although it's never 9 to 5 because in the field we do a lot of extra hours. But all of us, we have gone through university where you have this creative freedom. And then when you start working in the real life, you have to put on control that side, because there are so many other factors, like the factor of having, budgets, clients, restrictions from any kind of way. And then a lot of people, this is actually why I started the podcast, to talk to people like you, and so that other people like you can listen to it. Because also me, I've had the same experience. I moved to the real life world, and I thought I was a little bit, too much into just putting out work, and I've lost, my ability to concentrate on being inspired or creating something. And I thought just to, and also because when we have these talks, we get information from many people, and so that we can understand the experiences from others. Because, for example, I've talked to people that work at Björk Ingels, at Zaha Hadid, at MVRDV, and not every, among architects, maybe 1% of architects manage to go there. So if they at least spread the message, that's nice. And I think it's very nice that you have started this side blog and this design blog. And this also have been one of my ideas before starting the podcast, to start something like you. But what is curious to me also is like, how do you give yourself the programs or the tasks of your designs? Like, how do you design this? How do you decide what you're gonna design? So these buildings that you generate or these images that you generate, do you make yourself the brief? Do you set yourself a deadline? How is this work? What is the input to get this output of work?
I think I'm a very bad example when it comes to answering these questions. I think I'm very bad at maintaining my schedules or being very regular at it. But I tried. I try as much as possible of delivering maximum. As I mentioned before, I'm more about exploring the tool rather than focusing on the idea. I think as you start exploring the tool more and more, that idea kind of automatically seeps in. You just have to be there. That's the important thing that people have to know, that because for many people the major barrier to cross is that when they sit in front of the computer or they sit in front of an empty canvas, what should I draw or what should I create? That is the biggest barrier that you have to cross. So the way you do that is you start mastering the tool rather than focusing on the idea, and the idea comes in on itself later on. Sorry, I forgot what your question was.
No, but that's exactly how you come up with these ideas, because I'm looking to the images and they're so different. Like with, for example, there is a sort of a tower, like there is a sort of a stair tower. There is a house that it's inside a rock. There is a building that's englobing a cathedral, or at least looks like it, and the facades and everything. Those are very elaborated projects, So I'm wondering,
Yes.
like, do they come out of sort of a playing around with the software, or you say, I feel like you see another project that exists and you think I'm gonna do that? Do you sketch on paper before doing it? How do you generate the ideas? That's
Right. So yeah, as I mentioned, I do spend a lot of time just exploring the tool, but also you're always on the internet, looking at other people's work, spending a lot of time on Pinterest, looking at references. So these things, these research do inform your architectural thinking a lot. So my work is very visual, so I also try to take visual inspirations. So sometimes if I like any form, I just try to explore it a lot more. Like, I mean, forms that I see in other people's work, I just take them and just develop them a lot further, so that they become mine and not theirs anymore. So, and then you just keep working on it until it becomes interesting. The other thing that really influences my thinking was because I lived for 5 years in China. I think the East Asian architecture had a lot of influence for me, because I think China went through this interesting phase where they completely skipped the modernism movement, from 50s to 70s. When, for example, in India, we were building, like Corbusier and Louis Kahn were building modernist architecture, or even in the West, China had none of it. So when I started this work, the Chinese architecture, was really influencing my work. And I thought, hey, what would be a modernist interpretation of Chinese architecture? Because it just does not exist. And I think a lot of Chinese architects were also exploring these ideas at that time. So, that did influence my work. So I created some interpretations of pagoda architecture, for example, or the Chinese house or a Chinese temple. So that did have a influence on my thinking. Also, I came across, like you mentioned, this project of house inside a rock. So I did come across this image of these rock cut tombs in the middle of a desert in Saudi Arabia, in the area of Maden Saleh, which is also very close to Petra in Jordan. So yeah, I really like these ideas of these giant boulders sitting in front of in the middle of a desert, and there are these tombs that are carved inside, and I thought, hey, maybe there is an architectural idea here, like a contemporary architectural idea, somewhere here. So I played around with that a little. I was not necessarily happy with the result, but maybe that did resonate a lot with other people, when they saw that. Yeah, I have to say this, sorry, that I'm not happy with most of the work I do. But that's how it is. It's an ongoing process. You have to keep putting work out there, whether you like it or not. But what matters is what you build over the period of many years. When you look back now, I have put together many projects. Many of them I don't like, but I think together they speak something.
And do you delete the older posts? Because I mean, although you have so many people following you, the posts that you have, they're not so many. They're like 74 posts. Are all of them
Yes.
original, or some of them got deleted?
No, none of them are deleted, and none of them are reposted. They're all just posted once. That's it. I don't buy this idea of reposting.
And how long it takes you now to make one of those projects, roughly?
So last 2 years, actually, I was doing this full time. So from the moment I moved to Canada in June 2018 till, I would say, end of last year. Yeah, end of 2020. Yeah. I did this pretty much full time. So I was aiming for one project a week, but that never happened. It would usually, like, I would finish a project in a week and then I would hate it and then I would not post it and then I would start from zero. So actually I have like another like 10 projects at least that are fully developed, all rendered, but not posted because I didn't like them. And so on an average, it takes 2 to 3 weeks. In last 3 months, I have not posted anything because just my schedule has changed a lot. But I'm like really again trying hard to get back into it. But it's not easy, it's a lot about having the continuous tempo.
Yeah, to take this momentum.
Yeah.
And now that you have a full-time job, I can imagine that after the work day, it feels very exhausting to keep working on something that's also related to design, because whether you like it or not, after a full day at work, your brain is tired.
Yes, it is. Also, in my initial days of this blog, things were quite easier for me because me and my wife, we were in this phase of moving to Canada. So we kind of made it a transitional moment. She moved here first and I was alone in Shanghai. So after the work, I come home and I'm just by myself, So I have this now suddenly 5-6 hours in front of me, which I invested in this. Now it's like, okay, I'm living here with my family. So it becomes a little bit harder, but I'm sure there is a way to figure it out.
Yeah, also because, you have, me personally, for example, I do a lot of work for this podcast, and my girlfriend, she's helping me because she's also part of the whole process and the whole project. And but still, you want to balance it because you want to have your family time, your relationship time, to curate your relationship, because this is also something that's not to exclude, like, we are people before being creatives or designers. So that's also an aspect that every one of us needs to consider, that we, on one side, through this social media, through motivational videos that you see around the internet with Elon Musk telling you should work 100 hours a day. Yes, but no, because you have only one life, and you have to, also put a little bit of value and priority to your personal relationship, I think. So
very true.
That's something also that, I mean, when you said that you have been for sometimes alone in Shanghai, and that makes more sense because, dedicating your whole self for working and creating content is also, I don't think it's it's gonna be sustainable on, like, not for you personally, in general, for anyone, also for
Yes.
myself, it's not gonna be sustainable. But I guess, do you have these moments in life where you need to do multiple times, push through to get your own, I like to say accomplishment, not success, because success is very, personal definition.
Yes.
And how did this whole thing with Canada wrapped up? How you guys suddenly decided to move from one side of the world to the completely opposite side of the world? What happened?
So China is never really a long-term place. I mean, at least for me and my wife, it never was. For some people, it is. I think, like, even before I moved to Shanghai, my wife always talked about, emigrating to Australia or Canada, because these were the two countries that were offering a permanent residency. So yeah, like, actually, the moment I reached Shanghai, we started applying for permanent residency to Canada, and we moved there. And I love it here. It's extremely beautiful. People are extremely welcoming. This country is attracting a lot of immigration, so there is a lot of future growth ahead. So yeah.
I understand. I think it's also, easier because the spoken language
Yes.
is English. So
Exactly. And also in China, like, my wife had already spent 8 years over there. So I think it was starting to, like, okay, I think this phase is ending. We need to now move to the next one. And as I mentioned earlier, China is not a long-term place because, yeah, I don't know, for many reasons.
yeah, I mean, I can understand. I can leave the reasons to the imagination of the listeners. Everybody can think why China is not a long-term place.
And I mean, it's not only China, okay? I mean, I can say, like, this applies to probably many Asian countries, that, let's say, people from the West, they move there and they may not find it as a long-term place, And nothing specific about China here.
Yeah, I mean, I come from Bulgaria in Italy, and they're both European countries, but in both countries, I wouldn't go back to live there, just not because I have anything against those countries, but it's just not the right fit for my personal, life and career and what I value. But at some other people, if you ask them, they think that's totally my place. I could never leave. So that's totally understandable. As somebody that lives abroad, I can understand it too.
Like, sorry, I have a couple of friends, that I met in my first job in China. There's one guy is Spanish, other guy is Chilean, and they started their own company in Shanghai. 100 architects. People should really look at their work. It's quite interesting, and they're doing really well. They're extremely happy, and for them, that's their destination. They would not trade it for any other place. So yeah, I think it's just about finding your own place and be happy there.
Yes, we have had so many people here on the podcast that have left their own country of origin to find their own, as I said, accomplishment or personal achievement. Because as you said, success, saying someone is successful, it's very, for me personally, very superficial. Because, for example, we can say you're very successful on Instagram, but behind this success, there is a lot of work, a lot of personal sacrifices, pain. So the real question is, are you happy with doing that? So if you're happy, then you're accomplished and you're successful for yourself.
Yes.
And
precise.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to give an idea about, like, for me, like, last 2 years were very difficult, because I did this Instagram full time and I had zero income out of it. I was, like, completely living off of my savings, and plus supported by my wife. Many thanks to her. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. So yeah, there is a lot of cost involved in achieving your goals. And I'm sure, like, staying at home 2 years, not making any money, is a very hard thing to do.
But I think you could somehow monetize your, your internet presence somehow at some point.
Yes. Now
Uh,
I think now the NFTs have opened up that opportunity in a very, very big way.
Okay, but you don't want to, for example, I don't know, having partnerships with companies. I don't know. I might think about Cinema 4D or Octane Render. Don't those company would be happy to partner with someone like you for, I don't know, marketing content, or for, I don't know, case studies to present to their users, something like that. Isn't that an option?
Well, actually, if we talk about Cinema 4D and Octane Render specifically, I think there are these softwares are more artist oriented, or like, let's say, visual VFX industry or the movie industry related than architecture. So maybe they don't see the value in working with me. Maybe they would like to work more with, let's say, people or other artists, who are more related to those fields. Because for these companies also, they have to really like give a clear message that, hey, we are a VFX software and not an architectural software. Maybe they want to I also, a lot of people do approach me, for example, saying, hey, will you, like, we are a band, will you make a music video for us? I mean, then also people approach me saying, hey, would you like to design movie sets, for example? So yeah, like there are these ways of monetizing, but I think I'm very focused on architecture as a core field, because there are a million ways to digress, and then again I just don't want to dilute that core architecture interest. So I keep saying no to those things, and I'm just hoping if I keep doing this long enough, something will come out of it in pure architecture.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that, as I said, I didn't know about your account, and I got to know about it because I've asked Oliver, and he told me you have collaborated together on that images.
Yes.
And I'm curious, for example, how did that happen? How did you guys met each other, and how did you settle this collaboration?
So I think last summer in 2020, we both appeared on a podcast, which was hosted by All of Archie platform. It's an Instagram platform, and it was the anchor was Faisal. So I appeared on a podcast, and then few weeks later, Oliver also appeared on the podcast. So I think that's how I came across him, and we just started talking, and we thought, okay, there are some common ways of thinking here. So that encouraged us to participate in a competition together.
Oh, so that was a competition that you did. It's not
Yes.
just a design project.
No, it was this micro home competition. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was purely a relation building exercise. I don't really believe in competitions because, yeah, it's just very, very random, the outcomes.
Was it one of those bee breeders competition?
Yes. Be breeders. Again, you have thousands of participants. You don't know what jurors are thinking. Sometimes their judging criteria are different than what you are thinking. It's just very, very hard to win those competitions. I would rather keep doing these projects on my own, where I have a lot more control on the things. I mean, some people think this is very easy, because you just have to make shit on your on your own. But but no, it's not. But I prefer this because I feel I see a lot more long-term value in this, because competition is something that you win once, and then probably it gets published once, and then that's it. It's over. There is not more value to it. But when you are building your own blog, which has a compilation of a lot of work, that I think together holds a lot more value. So I believe in this more than doing the competitions.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but I think that what you do, it's not easier because the competition gives you the, as I said,
Clear brief.
a
Yeah.
clear brief, a clear deadline, and that's way like those are two small things that maybe you cannot give yourself, and also because forces you to at least submit the work, because as you said, you did some project that you didn't release because of I mean, as everyone, you might suffer from some imposter syndrome. I have that too, and everybody has it, that they start doubt it. Okay, this is this is not good to show. And I have had that a lot. And for example, that's why I started the podcast. It's, so to say, my personal blog, as is your blog for design. So I started with really zero knowledge into how to make it. And I decided to, whatever was my first output, I decided I'm going to put it out. That doesn't matter how bad it is. Just I'm going to put out the work and see if the process that I'm doing, I like. And since then, I'm just still doing critical mistakes sometimes in doing it because it's not easy. But you get better and better, and you need time. You cannot be good with something. Some things you just, also, I guess, you after a month were in a good level with the software, but now after 3 years you're at a completely different level. So I think people need to consider staying into these small improvements on a longer term, and then see back what was the whole way. So
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I think this is a personal journey, right? Because you're not only just creating a content, whether it's a design or a podcast, you are also understanding yourself better as you move ahead, understanding your own thought process, understanding yourself as an individual. And this is the only way to do it. There is no other way. Like, just working for somebody else, I think you will not really fully realize your own potential. Even for me, like, this was quite a dream for me, like, to be able to work in these big architecture projects, big architecture offices like Zaha Hadid or Jack Angels or anyone like that. But now I have realized that, even if I work there, I'm still gonna be probably a nobody, at the end of the day. I'm just gonna, basically I'm donating my blood to somebody else, and yeah, okay, I will have probably a lot more stability and never have a problem finding another job, but still, like, who am I as an individual out there? That's the question that I like to ask myself, and I feel like through my design blog, probably I'm able to achieve that better.
I also, I were on your own. I had your own opinion about stuff. My dream was to end up working for, OMA, Björk Ingels, or Zaha Hadid, or, offices like that. And then I came to Germany, and finally I found my first job as an intern here in an architectural office. And it was crazy to me that I was getting, I would have, as I started informing myself what are the conditions to work in those offices as a young student, as an intern, I would have earned way less money. I would have worked way longer hours, and I would have spent a lot of my parents' money. So I thought, okay, this is not for me because I cannot afford it. And those offices make really architecture for just a few people around the world, not for everyone. So correct. I think, and this is now nice because I got to talk with people that work in those offices, and they tell me, this is have been there. They told me they are sharing some information about it, and I hope it's I hope it will help others too. And I'm not an advocate of forcing yourself to be part of those companies, because no matter what you do, you still work for someone else. as you said, you're
Yeah.
giving your blood for someone else.
I think it's a nice experience to do it for 2-3 years, to really understand the functionings of such creative, like, world leading creative organizations. So yeah, that is a nice part, but I don't think it's sustainable to do over long term, because you're working crazy hours, 12-15 hours a day. At the end, again, as I said, the question is, who are you as an individual, and what is your contribution going to be?
Yes,
So yeah.
I have had on the podcast Marina Kunavi. She's a Greek architect. She have worked she's based in the Netherlands, and she has worked at Meccano, MVRDV, and OMA. And she said exactly that. She said, I wanted to work there for 2-3 years so that I had the opportunity to learn what is the process behind. And now she has her own studio, and that studio she has, it's run with those principles. And so that's a good idea. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you have failed or.
No, yeah, of course, it's not like you have failed. That's my own definition, that I don't see myself working in these offices for long term.
And how was in Canada to find a job? Was it hard? Like, did people was it because here in Germany, for example, I've seen a lot of people coming from outside Europe, and the least that can happen is that they get hired, but they'll tell them, I don't know, you're not experienced here, so we cannot pay you so much and stuff like that. So was it in Canada easy to find a job as someone that comes from far away and has no working experience in the country?
Yes, I think the problem that you explained about Germany is very similar here. The local experience is extremely valued, and without that, your prospects are very kind of like not as bright. Your starting salary will be low, and I think first 2-3 years will be a lot of struggle. Even for me, like, my plan was not to find an employment. I just simply wanted to start on my own. But now, because I am trying to get a license here as an architect, it's kind of mandatory for me to work with somebody. I think what helped me a lot is my Instagram. In fact, even this job opportunity that came, they approached me because they saw my Instagram, and they're like, hey, we really like your design, and not many people in Canada think like this, and we want you on board. So I consider myself fortunate, and I'm very happy that it worked out. But yes, I know many peers who are who are having hard time getting good salaries, and just getting the first job. It's very hard.
But alone this, that you got a job offer, it's worth the whole work for the account, in my opinion, because this is the proof that Instagram is not a toy, but it can be your sort of business card.
Yeah, it is. It's a very powerful business card, I would say.
What is the process to become a licensed architect in Canada, roughly, or as exactly as you can say it?
It takes about 2 to 3 years. If you, as a foreigner, if you come here, you first have to get your architectural education certified from a local educational institute here, that they say, okay, fine, we consider your foreign education equivalent to Canadian. And once that happens, then you kind of get this position of an intern architect. Okay, so now I'm at the age of 35. Now I'm going to be an intern architect. And then you work as an intern architect for 2-3 years. You have to fill up some hours, like in every category that they mentioned. Something like 2,000-3,000 hours they have. And once you do that, then you give some examinations, written examinations, and you give oral interviews, and then you get a license. So yeah, it is quite a 2-3 years of grueling process.
Oh, that sounds way hard, like way harder than Germany, because in Germany you have to do the first part. It's like the local union of the architects will need to recognize your title of study, which for people like me was very easy because it's a European Union title and it was automatically approved. and then you need, and then you need to work in the build all the here in Germany there is a very clear structure of the building process. There are phases which you have to work in every 9 phases of the project, and then you have to along in 2 years. Mandatory is to have been 6 months on the construction place as a controlling, and then into this after you have to have at least 2 years after university. You have experience or longer, and then you have in this time also to gather 80 points from conferences that are approved from that union. So you go on the website of the union, or you get to know through other institutions that they offer. Sometimes you have to pay, sometimes they're for free. You need to go and listen to so it's hard as there, but not exams in the end. So you just need to collect all this paperwork and send it, and then you're basically licensed. So I'm also in the middle of this process right now. But while you're in that process, do you have a regular paycheck, or it's way lower than if you were licensed?
As I said, I think I consider myself lucky because I'm hired as a designer and not as an intern architect. So I think that helps a lot. And again, I think I have now almost 10 years of experience working in other architecture offices. So I think that also was valuable. And it was not only in India, I also had experience in China and UK.
Yes.
I think if it was only India, I think that would have been a problem.
Yes.
Because the building practices are quite different.
Yeah, the standards and everything.
Yeah. But I want to ask you, like in Germany, is it easy for non-Europeans to come in and find jobs or like get a visa? Or like is their visa attached to their employers? How does it work there?
I don't know. For the different countries, it's different. I've talked personally also on the podcast with one former colleague of mine from New Zealand, and for people from New Zealand, it's pretty easy because they have a very easy regime on visas, because generally there are not a lot of people coming from, for example, countries like New Zealand and Canada, because they're not economical immigrant. They mostly come because some he came for his girlfriend, and generally people come over for just enjoying life here. And getting a job, it's not probably so hard for those countries, but still they will be underpaid because they won't know the language and the local process. So the first paycheck will be slightly lower. I have a personal colleague, and he also was on the podcast. He's from Iran. And he came to Germany during the pandemic, and he has a lot of experience like you do in Iran, only in Iran, and he has a great portfolio and a great website. He was on a few episodes ago. His name is Emad Kashfi, and his website and his portfolio are amazing. But he said that when he started applying to the major offices in Germany, he had quite of a struggle to get even an invitation for a working interview. And once he was here, he was lucky enough that the office where we work right now contacted him. He participated in the interview, and everybody liked him and employed him. But in general, it's not easy. I mean, the best ways to come here while you're still studying, if you have a completed studies here, or you have an internship already experience and the language, it's way easier, of course.
That's cool. Yeah, because even initially when I applied to big offices here in Canada, not a single response. So
yes, I think it's a very general experience to have this kind of reaction when you apply, because also in my opinion, it's also a way of the companies to say it will be hard to put you on track in the beginning, so we're gonna underpay you a little bit. but
Yeah.
I think it's I'm lucky enough that I started when I was a student, and for me money weren't a factor. I came here to Germany with an exchange program. It's called Erasmus, where you can go from your local university to another university in Europe and study there for 2 years during your studies.
Nice.
And I found this job because in Germany, if you get hired as a student, the company pays lower taxes, and
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's the benefit that I got to gather my experience when companies were happy to hire me because I was cheaper to hire, and that gave me the initial boost to be
That's good.
yeah. So that was really helpful for me. But I guess now that you have a job, your further job applications will be way easier.
Lot easier. No, I really enjoy this stability because I think last couple of years when I was working by myself alone, I think I really got trapped in this tunnel vision, where I think the work that I was producing was getting monotonous. And I think when you're part of this collaborative, creative environment, I think your mind opens up better and a lot more ideas come to you. And I think I just find that a little bit better on a personal level also. And yes, as you said, like once you have a local experience, it's gonna be far easier. Like, I mean, the journey ahead is gonna be far easier.
And how has been the working process in Canada for you during this lockdown? I guess you have had a lockdown there too. Do you work from home or do you go in the office? How it is the
Yeah.
situation?
So actually, yeah, I have to say that I got this job 2 weeks ago. So I'm really new at it. I mean, I first I was doing a freelance for them from home, and then they offered me a full-time position 2 weeks ago. First 2 weeks, yeah, I was working at the office, and actually from tomorrow we'll be working from home because there is a recent rise in cases.
Yeah, that's crazy here. The same situation. We are waiting for new measurements currently we are already in a sort of complete lockdown. I go to the office because you're allowed to go to work, but otherwise everything is locked down. You can just go to the
Right.
supermarket and that's it. So it's crazy that this is going on a global level, and we'll see
Yeah.
what. I think that we're gonna see the consequences after it's under control, and we'll see how it's.
Yeah.
And
But
now,
I think it's a good lesson for everybody. I think people really got used to this cozy life, in Western world at least, I think in general. And I think it's gonna wake up everyone that, hey, we can't take our life for granted, or our way of life rather. And I think, for example, Europe came out of World War II, and it was a very big lesson to get your shit together. And I think this, I feel, is another milestone moment for us.
I hope so. I hope it will be the same. I think in the field of architecture and the design in general, the smart and the flexible one will be able to, create new way of collaborations. Also, as we are now, for example, on an intercontinental level, online. Now you have really cheap tools to collaborate on something with people that are far away from you, to connect to people that are far away from you, and
Correct.
feels more legit now, because back in the days, if you have the opportunity to have personal contact with locals, feels different. But now, as you don't have the opportunity to have personal contact as much, everybody, if you're sitting in Canada or in Germany or in India, it doesn't really matter. I have had so many people already from Mexico, Seattle, New York, everywhere. So it's been
That's cool.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I think this is another benefit of doing podcast or design blog, right? Because you meet so many new people and like-minded people based in some other corner of the world, and then you realize at the end that we are all just same people.
Yes, and I think also the benefit is that, for example, for me, my format is the same as a media. So now I have also the opportunity to contact those people that when I was studying or when I was younger were my idols, and tell them like, hey, how about we do an interview and we talk, and they become from being my idols to being my friends. And this is really, I suggest to everybody who have these ideas in their mind to start as small as possible, put out work, check how is the process, and if they love it, to keep going.
Exactly.
And last question, I'm very curious, how does it feel now in Canada? Does it feel like the right place for long term, or you considering or not yet?
Both actually. It's like not yet, but at the same time, I'm tired of changing countries. And I was just talking to my wife yesterday, like, okay, both of us, we love UK a lot because, I've lived in London there. I miss a lot. And also my wife's sister lives there. So we were just talking, man, it will be cool to live in UK. But then it's like, we just think about the whole moving experience, and I don't want to do that again. This is already done 3 times. So yes, probably for now, yes, this is Canada. It is, and let's hope how it goes. You never know.
I hope it's gonna go well. And UK, it's now a weird place to move in because they're out of Europe, so you don't know which direction it's gonna take.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered pretty much all the topics that we were supposed to cover. I think it was a very interesting conversation.
Same here, man. Sorry, just one thing. There was one question about what is your favorite book, and I really wanted to talk about that.
I was about to ask you that. I wanted to conclude the interview with your favorite source of inspiration, whether it's a book, movie. I think for designers might be even a place, because sometimes I get inspired when I go to a museum.
Yes, but this one particular book that has helped me in my creative journey is called War of Art. It's by Steven Pressfield. And actually, again, this book I came across because of Beeple, because he said that, hey, I'm not a book person, but this book has really helped me. So I really listened to it. And actually, it's an amazing book. And it basically talks about a journey of a creative. I mean, Steven Pressfield is a writer, and he talks about his own journey, that how he succeeded and how he created the discipline and how he overcame the resistance of doing something. And actually, I listen to this audiobook, I would say, every month, because it just helps to clear the concepts in my head and helps me keep going. So basically what I'm doing, is like just creating these concepts for no apparent reason, but this book helped me to find that reason and the logic behind doing this. So I would highly recommend this book to people who are like looking to who are interested in their own career, creative pursuits. So yeah, that's the book. And then movies, yes, of course. I mean, we can talk about a lot of movies, but that's a huge conversation itself.
Well, I've heard about that book too, and I can tell you that I'm a Joe Rogan listener, and in his podcast, he mentioned many times that before he was used to have a pile of those books and to give them as a present to his friends and guests. And I don't know, maybe by the time we're gonna release this podcast, we have set up some. We on the Creative Insider, we're planning to do some affiliate marketing through which people can support us for free, basically buying resources and information from Amazon, through which they found out through us. So maybe we'll have some affiliate link at some point so that it's clear to the listeners that it might be also a lucrative idea for us. But
yes,
so yeah, thank you very much for this talk. It was personally, on a personal level and on a professional level, very inspiring for me. It was great talking to you. I can give you the platform also to say again once more where people can find more about you online.
Yes. So the only platform that you can find me on is Instagram. And my account is Amazing Architect. And I don't really have any other social media channels. This is the only one. And again, thank you, Georgie, for having me here. Uh, it's very great to meet people like-minded people, who are in their own creative pursuits on their individual struggles. And it's just inspiring for all of us to have these conversations, and it just makes this journey a little bit more easier. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day, I guess.
Yes, thank you. Good night to you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hey friends, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. You've been amazing. Before we go, I just want to remind you that if you want to support us, you can just go on the creativeinsider.com, where you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, or you can follow us on our social media channels, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast, or the LinkedIn page, The Creative Insider. By doing this, you will have a bigger social media presence, which always looks attractive to more and more important guests. And so this is very fundamental. And if you really love what we do and you want to help us doing a better production, just click on the Patreon link below, where you can support us with the wished amount of money you think it's okay for you. It's a monthly subscription, but you can cancel anytime. So thank you very much and have a good week, guys. Bye bye.